Welcome to Sound Solutions Intern Takeover. Today we are embarking episode, 4? 5?
We're embarking on episode 4. Love it. Yeah, no, this is episode 4. And today we're talking about self-care, which I'm sure all of you are like kind of groaning and rolling your eyes because self-care is a hot topic right now and everybody's talking about it. And y'all are like, look, I don't have time to take care of myself. And I'm here to tell you.
That's true.
Yeah, that Renee and I agree. Which is why we're going to talk about it.
Yeah, and you haven't heard me talk about self-care. You're going to hear some wild things.
Yeah.
Stay tuned.
We might get in trouble for this episode. It's cool, though.
Before we get into it, we still need client and patient interaction, so please submit that to interns at musicworksinc.com. But we also have a Google Drive form fill out if that's easier for you, floating around Facebook and Twitter. So find it and submit things.
Yeah, we made it as easy for y'all as possible because we realize you don't even have time to take care of yourselves. So how do you have time to submit things to your favorite podcasters? So we tried to aid you in that venture. And also, we wanted to remind you to send us your resources. Don't know why I said it that way, but too late. Because we need more resources to share. We've gotten some amazing ones from some guests that we've interviewed and from some people that have submitted, but we want more so we can spread those around and share the joy, you know? The joy.
The love.
All of the above. All right, self-care. Renee, what is self-care?
Well, you're asking a person who has the worst self-care in the history of the world. But it's different for everybody. It is impressive. You should talk to the people that I know and love. They will tell you the same thing. So it's different for everybody, and it's something that rejuvenates you or help. Like, it could be rejuvenating, it could be processing, it could be any of those things that helps you get to a more
self-care
relaxed
is just
state.
Taking care of yourself. It's taking care of your brain and your body. That is like the basis of it. It's making sure that you are not in the future and you're not in the past, but like in the present moment, your mind and body are in a healthy spot. And it's the things that you need to do to make sure that you're in that spot. Would you agree, dear Renee?
Now that you said that so eloquently, yes.
So we all talk about self-care all the time. You know, you're in a therapy field and everybody's like, take care of yourself. You're going to burn yourself out, all of these things. But nobody really talks about how to do that and how to balance what we do and do it. They're just like, yeah, this is a thing you should do. And then there's no actual like follow through of, well, how do I do this? Because you're telling me I need to see all these patients and be at these places and have this crazy schedule. How do I take care of myself and like maintain all of this? So we wanted to talk about that a little bit. But before, let's talk about why it's important, because I don't think that y'all are sold on self-care. Specifically, Renee. I don't think Renee is sold on self-care.
Yeah, you're going to hear some interesting opposing views. So if you side with me, just kidding. You shouldn't side with me.
This is not the debate episode.
This is not a debate episode. Don't side with me on this. Yeah, it is important because for somebody like me who has a lot of anxiety and stress, but I also suppress most of my stuff and I'm constantly thinking, and I'm a workaholic also, a lot of good positive vibes over here. It's important to take a step back and really reflect and be in the moment. And
it's important to just take care of your body so you can continue doing the things that you want to do.
It seems so simple.
It is. I think that's the main problem with self-care and why people don't engage in it or don't prioritize it is because they complicate it. When you think self-care, you think things that you have to do. It turns it into a to-do list instead of being like, what does my body need? Top lists of self-care should be eating and sleeping. Like if you are not eating and sleeping, your body's going to crumble. Those are things that your body is telling you you need. But studies have shown that human beings can't function on less than 7 hours of sleep. So if you're getting less than 7 hours of sleep for consecutive nights in a row, your body's going to start wilting. It's just what happens. Your brain's not going to function as fast. Your metabolism isn't going to work as well. Your immune system's going to go down. That's just how the body works. So also eating, just eat food, okay? And like make that a priority. You get me?
Becky's preaching at me right
Sorry.
now.
Maybe we shouldn't have done this episode because I'm just going to end up lecturing Renee for the entire 30 minutes.
It's okay. So let's go back to where we complicate things And also our generational viewpoints on this was the difference between calling it laziness and sustainability. So where's that line?
I think it's different for everybody. That's like another thing that we should point out is self-care looks different on everybody. And because of that, there is going to be just individual differences, let alone generational differences. When we talked to a bunch of different generations in our first episode, that was something that came up, was the older generations, like self-care wasn't really a phrase. It wasn't really something that was talked about. But for younger generations, we're like, hey, this is a thing, even if we're not always great at the follow-through. Or they use it as an excuse.
There's a line, and I think some people cross it.
There's a line, but there's also like a mentality about it. Mm-hmm. If you're doing something in the name of self-care and it's actually making you feel worse, if you decide to sleep all day and you're like, this is what my body needs, it's self-care, but then at the end of the day, you feel awful, you feel heavy and not energized and still tired and fuzzy, that's not actually taking care of yourself. That's not actually self-care. That is avoidance sometimes, or whatever else it could be. You know, maybe going for a walk would be self-care. Maybe sleeping in a couple hours is self-care for you. Maybe that is what your body needs. But then it could also need to go outside and get exercise and fresh air and a change of scenery, even if that's not comfortable. Like self-care is not always like pampering yourself and doing what's comfortable.
I like that.
Care to expand?
No, I just agree with it. Just because, okay, so for those who don't know me and are listening, people like to do these meditation things or like mantra things or affirmation things, and honestly, or like...
She means music therapy. People like to do music therapy around Renee.
And it's not necessarily that. It's just, so we did this exercise where we had to write down on a plate things that we needed to do, things that were on our
a
mind.
paper plate. It wasn't a real plate.
Yeah, not a real plate. Things that we needed to do, things that we have to do, stuff that's on our mind. And then from there, you separated it into different lists of things you could let go, things that you could still keep, things that are not as pressing as you think, or things that you can alter to make it easier, stuff like that. And I just stressed out. Or like whenever we do like meditation or like relaxation in our Mindful Mondays as interns, I just sit there and cringe because it's just not relaxing for me. So going with what you said about activities, my friend, co-intern, who's no longer with us because she's a senior and she's gone, bought me quotation mark boxing classes, which were actually MMA fighting classes. And to me, that's like super relaxing. I'm sore still to this day after having my first class on, what was it, Monday?
Yeah.
I'm still sore. I hobble around, but it allowed me to be present and let go of a lot of things that I've been holding on to subconsciously. So
yeah, whereas that would not be me taking care of myself. That would be me pushing my comfort levels, which is also something like growth and expanding your horizons is good. But if I were to go into MMA, I would probably have a panic attack and leave, or follow through with it and get traumatized by being beaten up essentially and then never come back. But still, like, my body also needs exercise, but self-care for me for that would be taking a hike, scheduling the time
hikes
to like
are great. I love
take
hiking.
a hike or go to the beach or be outside or go for a jog or go to the gym. Like any of those things would be much more up my alley. Socially too, like I can do all of those things with other people, but I don't like being in combative spaces with other people. I also just don't like learning physical skills around other people. That's a whole other bag of worms. Bag of worms? Is that the phrase?
Can of worms.
Can of worms.
Yeah.
That makes less sense, but okay.
Well, back in the olden days, you get little cans for when you go fishing and you open them up.
It was like actually in a can?
Yeah. We have them at our bait shop down the road in Wisconsin.
Is it like a food can?
So, yeah, some of them like you can pop. Well, now modern day society, you have those little tabs that you can pull.
Yeah, well, it looks like a tub. The ones I've seen look like a tub. This has nothing to do with anything. However, very amusing.
Yeah. Yeah, with that, I like physical activities, hiking and stuff like that. So that may be your avenue of self-care.
That being said, though, the things you do for self-care are not always relaxing and not always comfortable. So I firmly believe that doing deep breathing and some form of relaxation, depending on the state you're in, can be very beneficial. However, it might not always be comfortable for you because of like where it leads you. And that can look different for everybody. Like some people don't do imagery well, or don't do progressive muscle relaxation well, or yoga. Like there are some things that don't always work, but if you have like a huge mind block on doing it, it could be because it is something that you need. It's just very uncomfortable for you to get into like a slow space that your body needs. On that note, your brain lies to you, okay? Your body knows what it needs. I've been saying this a lot the last couple of days, but like your body knows what it needs.
And if you're anything like me where you're like, how do I know what my body needs? I recommend doing a spiritual or personal inventory.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, doing
inventories. So helpful.
Yeah, just figuring out what you're lacking. There's places all over, and we use a book here called the Compassion Fatigue Workbook, or we've had inventories printed off by our supervisors where we just check off things that we would like to do or what you want to do versus what you're actually doing.
Yeah, we should dig into a better explanation of this. Personally, I had never seen these before I came to internship. Did you ever do them?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. Well, I never did them before I came here. And for somebody, as somebody who likes lists, let me tell you, very helpful, because I need to see things visually on paper to really conceptualize something. And these inventories are a list of multiple ways to take care of yourself, either personally or spiritually or whatever categorized.
Physically,
mentally,
physically, emotionally, etc.
Things that different people find helpful, or things that you used to do or enjoy engaging in. And you go through and you check the things that you'd like to do or you used to do and what you currently are doing. So you look at that and be like, wow, I haven't done
look where I'm failing in life.
Anything. This is great. I'm not doing anything that makes me happy. No wonder I feel this way. Or I'm not doing anything physically or anything for my spiritual self-care, which doesn't have to be religious. Like spirituality is like much bigger than that. I'm not spending time in nature, or I'm not meditating, or I'm not with a community of people. All of those things are very important to holistically keep our bodies and minds moving. So those inventories can be super helpful. You can print them off on the internet. This book that I realize I'm holding for no reason because nobody can see it is also really helpful because it's a workbook, and we'll put the link in the description of the podcast. But it goes through and it has different inventories, but it also has different activities. The paper plate activity was in here, which Renee did not like. So not all of them could be helpful for you, but there are some that can help you figure out which direction you need to go.
Yeah, we had to read this workbook before we started our internship, and I hate reading, but I really enjoyed reading this. As a person who never reads and will like drag your feet across anything to not get there, I really in my mind I had a visual.
She's very
I don't like reading at all.
Serious about this.
But this book was very interesting, and it helped me relate and talk to other people and other professionals a little bit better with, again, the compassion fatigue and the transference and stuff that I wasn't aware of. It's really cool for your personal self-care and also aiding other people's self-care in their journey and not adding to their stress.
And giving you language, too.
Yeah.
That's the other thing, is self-care can be hard to talk about partly because of that generational difference. So how do you tell a boss, your boss, who might be X amount of years older than you and in a different generation, who doesn't believe or think about self-care, that I need a mental health day? How do you be like, yes, this is what's happening. This is what I'm experiencing. The emotional weight of what we do as music therapists can be very heavy. How do I take care of my mind and body in a way? And how do I communicate that I need to do that to other people?
With that, you have to watch, though, the avoidance. I know what we do is heavy and stuff. There's a difference, and there's a line between doing certain activities and avoiding the processing or avoiding work and self-care.
Yeah.
And you got to ride that line, because if we end up abusing this word, no one's going to take it seriously. And that just comes down to you taking the time, finding out how you process and where you need to take that time and how long you need to take that time. So that's my only concern.
Again, what are you doing for self-care versus what are you doing to avoid? If every day has to be a mental health day, like there are bigger issues than your overall self-care.
Yeah. Just as somebody, like, I'm not sold on the 100% on the self-care train all the time. So as I'm trying to get on board with this and take care of myself a little bit better, I don't want it to be abused.
I would just like to note that this episode was Renee's idea. It
was. I am getting better, and I'm growing as a more wise individual as I age.
as I age. There are all of those aspects of self-care to keep in mind, and just remember that it's complex and it's different because we are complex and different human beings, and it's going to look different on you than it's going to look for someone else. That could mean that...
Rage rooms.
Yeah.
Axe throwing.
The things Renee picks up for her self-care are very different than the things I do, but that doesn't mean that we can't benefit from each other's ideas.
Yeah. Coloring.
So, yeah.
Coloring is great.
She's like, also, I like PG stuff like coloring, so that's wonderful. Okay, so now let's look at some ideas for how to integrate self-care and mindfulness into your own daily life. What does that look like? How can we do that? And it was funny because I was having a conversation with a friend who's probably listening to this, so hey. And she was like, don't just talk about journaling and meditation. And that is something that, at least in my circles, I see a lot. People talk about self-care and they're like, oh yeah, you should do yoga or meditate or just like journal. Just journal. And you have to realize that not everybody processes that way. Not everybody takes care of it themselves. Some people hate writing, like my co-intern here. So writing makes Renee incredibly anxious.
Yeah.
Writing is great for me. Stream of consciousness, boy, do I have too many words. So just physically externalizing that and writing it down is very helpful for me. But that's not the only way to process. There are times when writing is not helpful for me. So it can change. You don't have to have the same techniques and go-tos
every single time.
Yeah. You need to explore some of those other ideas. Creative arts are wonderful. Painting, drawing, externalizing that way. Sculpting, doing things with your hands. Those can be great. Exercising, some people need to physically work through those things and get out that energy that way. Because when we have like a lot of emotional energy and input, sometimes that physical aspect doesn't match up and we need to do things to help even that out.
Taking 5 deep breaths. And if you're someone like me who can't sit and breathe properly, I tend to breathe better when I'm hiking or I'm walking along the beach.
Or your body makes you breathe.
Yeah.
But that's the other thing, is that it doesn't have to be an event. You don't have to plan something for self-care. In between sessions, you can literally just take a moment to clear your mind and focus on your breathing. You make your clients do it all the time. Why are you not doing this? Also, just in the way you approach your life. To-do lists. I love me some to-do lists. Don't get me wrong. I really do. The more stressed I get, the more lists there are. But if you're making a to-do list for your day, if that's something you do, and you have 50 things on it, the chances of you getting those things done realistically is incredibly slim. That's just not, it's not realistic. It's probably going to make you more anxious. And at the end of the day, you most likely are going to feel worse because you didn't get those things done. So there was a study. I don't remember where. I'm just pulling facts out of the air. Or who knows if they're facts because they're coming out of the air. But I read this book once that said you shouldn't make a to-do list of more than 7 things because that's how much your brain can conceptualize. Little things like that, whether that fact is true or not, just making sure that the bites that you're taking are biteable.
Yeah.
Are not going to dislocate your jaw, okay? Doing those things throughout your day, right? Good analogy.
That was a great analogy. I'm
Thank
sitting
you.
here like, wow.
Wow. Chunks of time when you're not doing anything. So you work all day and you come home and you're brain dead.
Scroll Instagram.
So you scroll on Instagram or you watch Netflix. Is that really what's going to help you re-energize or process? It could. Some people could need the mindlessness of doing that, and it could be really good, or it could be a social aspect, or it could be, you really like looking at pictures or anything like that. For sure, if that is helpful, do that. But do you feel worse after you watch 3 hours of Netflix or scrolling on Instagram? Maybe first you should go for a walk, or you should cook something, or you should meet up with a friend like right after work when you still like have the motivation to do it. Finding those chunks of time when you're not doing anything, finding those alternate ways to actually take care of yourself within that time. And it doesn't mean scheduling every single minute of your day. It just means listening to your body. Is this something that's making me feel good, or is this something that I'm slapping on the title of self-care because I don't feel like I have the energy to do anything else?
I like that.
Thanks.
Sorry, I'm like formalizing. I think it's also a perspective on how you enter your days. I tend to do this where I wake up and be like, here I go, another day. I'm instantly cranky, and that's not good self-care. So for me, being more mindful of my thoughts and my energy in the beginning of my day all the way through my day helps me tremendously. So like if something goes wrong, I hit my funny bone 15, 20 times a day. Don't know why. Instead,
I have a theory about that, actually.
Really?
Yeah, since we're talking about that, but proceed.
I want to know now.
Well, I think both of us, I feel like, have gotten less graceful.
Since we started this.
Since we've started internship.
Yeah.
Since we started this. Since we started internship. And I think part of it is that because our self-care has slipped. Like, we are constantly pushing our minds and our bodies in so many different ways that we are literally losing our spatial awareness. We're losing our ability to focus on our body and like integrate those systems. And I think it's something to be aware of. That's part of listening to your body. Are you tripping 12 times a day because your brain is somewhere else and you're not in the present? Are you hitting things and more clumsy than you usually are? Those might be signs.
Yeah.
Your body being like, hey, we need to slow down. Okay. I'm not grounded. I'm not in the current place and time. And like, I'm not with you right now. So that's why I think you keep hitting your funny bone. And that's why I think I keep knocking things over at 6 a.m. in my kitchen when I'm like, wow, I'm really waking up my landlord right now. I need to calm down.
Tying back to what I was saying, I think mind discipline and how you look at things and situations throughout your day can change everything within your self-care routine. So we were talking about earlier making it to do to be self-care. That's a problem of mine, and I know if I just practice that mind discipline is what I like to call it. Some people like mindfulness.
Okay, so other things that you can do. Mantras and affirmations. It's important to remember that these don't have to be productions. These don't have to be sitting down and writing out, I am whatever. It can just be focusing on your morning drive. What is a word that conceptualizes what I need right now? A really good one that I really like is I'm enough, because it circles a lot of that. And it's not something that I have to repeat to myself 5 times a day or in the car at certain times or sing it or anything like that. It can just be something that I pull out when stuff starts happening throughout my day. You can do that with lots of stuff. Peace is another word that I really like. It can also be a chant that maybe grounds you, or a phrase that grounds you, or it can be a song. Something that I think that people don't always realize is that songs from our childhood can be very comforting and grounding. Honestly, if I'm having a terrible day and no other music sounds good, but I need something in the car, like I can put on Disney music and mindlessly belt, just have a good time and have those memories and those feelings that are associated with those songs come back, which can be super helpful and grounding for me, at least.
I have a mantra that I guess I didn't even think it was a mantra, but I picked it up back in my sports years. And my coach would always scream at us, finish harder than you start. So if you start sprinting fast, you got to finish faster. And I kind of always think about that, and I didn't realize I do all the time.
I like that, though, because it also is a mindset for what happens in the middle. Mm-hmm. Like, even if you have ups and downs in the middle, remember that motivation. I'm probably digging into this way deeper than it's supposed to be, but remember that motivation that you had when you started.
Mm-hmm. It gives, when I think about it, it always just makes me push to be harder and be better and constantly progress. It can be taken in so many ways, but I remember that one. And for those people who may be more like me, maybe you want that one. I don't know.
Yeah, whatever's helpful, take. Whatever's not, just be like, wow, it was nice to hear those girls talk to themselves for half an hour. So we already talked about inventories, but seriously, this is something that you can look into, that you can print off. If you're in a space where you're like, this all sounds great, but I don't know what I need, and none of this sounds good for me, check out the inventories.
We'll put a link for a few inventories in our description, but if you look at the book that we'll also link, they have several really good ones in there too. I highly recommend the book.
Just take the time to process and figure out how you process and what you need.
It could be as simple as waking up and drinking a cup of coffee on a porch or on your favorite chair and doing absolutely nothing and staring at the wall or out the window or at the life of kids getting ready for school. Who knows?
So overall, another note that I just want to leave you all with, because this is something that I need to be reminded of, and I think is a huge part of why people don't engage in self-care, is this aspect of productivity and making sure that your time is always productive. And the thing is that taking care of yourself is productive. It is a long-term investment, but it is productive. And outside of that, your worth does not depend on your productivity. What you put out is not how much you're worth. So don't let that hold you back.
Also, life is pretty short, and you never know, this is kind of serious, but you never know which day's your last. So spending it negative energy or purposely putting yourself in harm's way with your own thoughts and things that you do, I don't think it's worth it. I think we should be living more in the moment and enjoying the stuff that we do. Whether it's, I know like not everything we do is easy and fun, but there's a reason for it, and just finding simple joys, again, perspective changing, finding simple joys in things that you do can go a long way. So coming to work every day, I get to meet really cool people, and I hold on to that every single day. There's not a single person I've ever come across in therapy, even if they're blatantly rude, where I'm like, man, I wish I never met them. No, it's more like I'm glad I had the opportunity to share and be a part of their life experience and grow their path.
Yeah, I think it's also, and it's not that you don't have long-term things. It's not that you don't plan, and it's not that you don't have to push through certain phases of your life or times or days or weeks. It's that within those, one day of negativity might help you release a lot. A week of negativity is probably going to drain your energy and make you feel even worse about continuing on the path that you're on, even if you know it's necessary for where you want to go.
Yeah, if you need help with that, we got some resources in store for you. So without further ado, now it's time for
Resource Corner.
Resource Corner.
Resource Corner.
Resource Corner.
Resource Corner. Resource Corner. Yeah, it's bad every single time. Sometime we're going to have to like legitimately sing for them so they know that we know how to we know how to do it. Okay, so resources to integrate in. Check out the apps from our last episode. Laura gave us some amazing self-care apps that you can use with your clients, but you can also use for you. And they're a really good way to figure out what you need. I know it's in front of you. It's on your phone. Let me do this real quick. Body scans, amazing. Also, the Compassion Fatigue Workbook. We will put the link in the description. I would try and pronounce the author's name, but I think I'm going to...
Do it.
No. She's French-Canadian, I'm almost positive, and French is not my strong suit, so I'm not going to try. But it's amazing, and we'll put it in the description, and y'all should check it out. Also, your last resource is literally anything you tell your patients to do.
Oh, snap.
Yeah, just a little bit of a kick in the butt. I'm just saying, deep breathing, drawing, expressing, talking to people, leaning on your support systems.
Playlist, mood modulations.
Movement activities. Like literally all of these interventions that we learn, we use them for a reason. We have research on them for a reason. Use them.
As you start your journey of learning self-care, I feel like the beginning stages are always rough because you have to change your mindset on it from being a to-do list, from being selfish and figuring out how it works for you. And then as you go through this process, it will become natural to the point where you probably won't think about it too much.
And don't give up because somebody else's self-care doesn't work for you. Figure out what you do and also figure out what you're already doing that's for self-care. But that's all we have for you today. We really hope that some of this was helpful. Please continue the conversation. I realize we say this every single time and nobody comments, but like...
You break my heart.
Continue the conversation with your friends at least and with other people and... figure out what works for you. We all want this field to be as sustainable as possible, and we want us all to be healthy clinicians that can continue to give to the people around us.
To summarize, start the adventure and the journey of figuring out what self-care means to you, and remember and understand that it looks different for everybody, and it's always different for each situation you come across. So just keep exploring and keep advancing yourself as a human being. And so... You're welcome for this podcast.
Don't forget to submit resources and patient/client interaction stories. That episode's coming up and the deadline is October 30th, so you don't have that much time. So please submit those and we will read them on our podcast that is coming out very soon.
So without further ado, R&B out.